Seb said 3-1 sums it up pretty nicely, doesn't it? It's kind of exactly what we expect over the 90 minutes.
Yeah, and we saw Real Madrid be a side that know exactly what they're doing. They controlled the game. They scored the early goal. They got the second with a good bit of play, and Valverde with his finish. And Craig's quite right. He's had an excellent season so far. He's been a brilliant player for them. And from that moment on, all they wanted to do was control the game. And they did for long periods. And then suddenly I thought Barcelona, their centre-half started to come out with the ball. De Jong going into central midfield started to dictate the play a bit. Ansu Fati coming on started to go past people. They scored the first goal. They should have scored a second one when Ansu Fati had a chance. And there was just a moment where you sensed Real Madrid were just beginning to panic slightly. But as soon as they went and got the penalty, that was the game over.
What was interesting, Craig, and it made me think of you watching this, that Barca was so quiet throughout the whole game. No one was talking to each other. It was almost everyone was just focusing on themselves and not making a mistake. There was no loudmouths there. There was no leaders.
Well, and also they're struggling defensively. We've talked about this, and I know Robbo touched on it at half-time in the game. The fact that there's no pressure really on Toni Kroos, and yet they don't drop off and they allow Vinicius Junior acres to run in behind. It amazes me. I mean, there's no physicality in the middle of the park. Busquets has been a brilliant player and he's a great passer of the ball, but he's not guarding that back four anymore. He can't marshal it as a defensive midfielder. He hasn't got the legs to get around. We saw Toni Kroos run away from him. Toni Kroos is not known for his busting runs from the middle of the park. He's in his 30s himself. And the other side of the coin, guys, is that he keeps sticking with this Dembele and Rafinha flanking Lewandowski. Now, neither of them were great today. Rafinha got taken off in the game against Inter. Ansu Fati, who I said 6 weeks ago, I felt when all things were said and done, I think the front three would have been Dembele, Lewandowski and Ansu Fati. But he keeps sticking with Rafinha on the right. That means Dembele has to go to the left, which is not his favourite position. And they're really not getting enough from those two guys. Whilst Ansu Fati comes on, not for the first time. I think it was Mallorca he did it away, or one of the games away from home. He came on and he was brilliant back heel. He comes on and makes a difference today. But yet, once again, Robbo, he's not in the starting 11.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Rafinha and Dembele don't look as though they can play together. And it was Dembele that played on the right-hand side in the first game against Inter and didn't play very well, and Rafinha on the left-hand side, and they swapped those over for the second game. That didn't work either. Neither player has got an end product at the moment. Ansu Fati has got an end product. He was a bright player 2 years ago. He was one of the best players in Spain. He can be that player again. He's got to be given a chance, as has one or two other players. De Jong wasn't probably at his best, but he needs confidence because he hasn't played enough. And I think Kessie has to come into that midfield at times to add that bit of strength and power, because you're absolutely right. Busquets today could not run, could he?
You said that to me when we were watching the game. You said, can't run, Dan. He's got no legs left.
I don't think I quite said it like that, but yeah, something to that along those lines.
What was the biggest mistake Xavi made?
I think maybe playing Busquets.
Right.
I think that was a mistake. I said before the game he should play with De Jong as the holding midfield player, or even Kessie in there, who's got more legs and would be a better defensive player. I don't think he should have played with the two wide players. I'd have played Gavi on the left-hand side of the front thing, because he did that last year and not been quite so forward-thinking, and played Dembele on the right. That would have been how I would have set the side up. It didn't work for him. He made changes. It got better when he made the changes. He's got a big choice now going into the next couple of games, which we'll be covering. Is he going to change the system? Is he going to change the person? I think he has to. And
looking at it, Craig, this has been such a disastrous few days for Barcelona out of the Champions League. Where would you say they are now in this La Liga race?
Oh, very much still in it. I mean, they've up until this Clasico, they've scored goals, they've played pretty well. Lewandowski's goal scoring against everybody else has been pretty good. So they've got to pick themselves up. They're 3 points behind. They're not 13 points behind. So I think it's all still to play for. I just feel up until, and I know Robbo touched on it, it was a bit panicky at the end for Real Madrid until the Rodrigo goal. But they managed the game better than anybody else in Spain, maybe better than anybody else in Europe. They managed the game pretty well. They're patient. They're not focused on possession, but they're focused on shape and counter-attack. And so from Barcelona's perspective, it's a kick in the gut, but you've got to pick yourself up. One of the other things I was thinking about, and I do agree about Frank Kessie, you know, he's a different type of player. He scores goals, he passes, he tackles, he gets around the pitch. The other thing that I was thinking about, and I know Gerard Piqué struggled in midweek, and I know he can't run, but he's got a lot of experience. But Real Madrid's threat is not pace from the middle area of the field, it's pace from the wider areas. And I wonder whether Jules Koundé would have been better off playing against Vinicius Junior.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.